What's up? What is up, people? Doing some more Road Warden. Pretty soon I'm probably gonna have to go and get some water because I'm basically just doing an audiobook at this point. Things look loud, so I'm gonna call this down. I'm gonna bring up my mic a little bit more, and down a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher because you want to hear it at least a little bit. Where we left off is we were making a good impression in town, and then we were sort of forced to spend the night at that one location in the town. We weren't able to reach the new town in time, so we're going to pick up right where we left off in our story with more reading. Now, again, this is where we spent our time last night because we couldn't get to the next location before sundown. This should now be early morning. So yeah, 15 hours before dusk, so 9 in the morning, presumably? Question mark? Maybe not 9 a.m., but early in the day. I have about 15 more hours. Quick second, let's just take a look at the map. Maybe I can't do that. So I can. My vitality is good, not perfect, but good. Nourishment is okay. My appearance is clean and tidy. It's not, hey man, I'm not appearing for royalty. Armor 3 or 4, it will stop even a life-threatening strike. With your current gambeson, it's the best protection you can get. And my Numa, this is my magic. Things look good. Alright, so let's get started and see if we can warden some roads and help some folks out. Alright. So, you're wandering through a village. A gray-haired, muscular guard is trying to hammer out the dents in her rusty helmet. Gray-haired, muscular guard, okay? Hammer out the dents in her rusty helmet. A young man is hanging laundry, humming a melody you've never heard before. Don't really have any interest in going to the tailor. My gambeson is already pretty good, so let's head to the main square. That was a Discord. I don't give a shit. You approach the inn. A couple of laborers eat gruel and leftovers, too sleepy to gossip. The only people who aren't yawning are the two elderly ladies who sit on a bench, holding hand and observing the creek. The innkeeper is sitting near the door, from time to time carrying out another bowl of either stew or gruel. Teus is nowhere to be seen. Don't really have a reason to, so I think if I just hit travel. Nope. Okay. Map. Here we go. Alright, so this is where we camped out. You can see by the flag. Rock slide that was preventing me from traveling further in that direction. Western crossroads, and then that was the gate. So, what I remember is that we came to this gate. And then there was a guy guarding it, and I think he was telling us something about needing to talk to someone. He's guarding the gate because the people on the other side have some kind of problem, and he can't leave until someone comes to relieve him of his duty. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go here. We're going to head this way. There were a bunch of context cues that I totally had and don't remember. Basically about, problems with the north or the south. I don't know how to get there. Oh, the beholder. Right, that was the swamp. I remember that. Alright. Yeah, see, look at all this stuff that I haven't been to yet. I can go that way. I could have gone north from here. Could have gone north on this one. Just a bunch of stuff. Alright. Whatever. Back to it. Leave the square. Okay. Travel. So, we're going up here. Right back to that crossroads I was at before. Two squirrels, one red and one blue, are standing on top of the two opposite signposts, screaming and throwing pebbles at each other. When you get closer, they climb down swiftly and run towards a nearby tree. Alright, so I really don't want to spend too much time here, but let's look around. The thicket doesn't help. You notice the remains of berries and pears, but most of them are already rotting, spread close to the wooden stools at the side of the road. The nearby creek is not impressively deep, but the beaver dam, for some reason, taller than you are, makes it wide, and waters surrounding soil. A few steps away from the southern signpost, you find something sticking out of a shrub. It's a moist plank covered by fungi. You try to move it with a stick and a gloved hand. After a minute or so, you confirm it's an abandoned sign, covered with green letters and colorful pictures of flowers and trees. Okay. The southern post is the only one with holes left by nails. Okay. I'm going to take a look and try to see what this is. It's covered with green letters and colorful pictures of flowers and trees, now blending in with the mold. As far as you can tell, it used to be attached to the southern post. Alright. So, east, north, west, south. South is the one that had the broken signpost. So let's head to the eastern and see which way that goes. The long plank attached with rusted iron nails is almost empty. It bears no words, only a single picture, painted with great care. It portrays a city-like gate with a watchtower to its left and its right, to its left and right, and a couple of small conifers growing beside it and partially behind the towers. Right, that is east, so that's the place that I was at where the guy couldn't leave. So let's take a look at the west. There's two planks attached to the single post, both of them nailed with rusty steel. The lower side is divided into two halves. The left edge is engraved with four simple shapes, squares with roof-like lines hanging above them. Okay, village. The other edge bears two engraved piles, one of them made with horizontal rectangles, the other with inexact circles. You don't recognize the letters between those two piles. The upper right plank is with two short words drawn in white and paint, and right below them an engraved vertical triangle with an hourglass inside it. Well, that's fine. Let's go west. You cross a clean, shallow, yet wide creek that runs south, then follow the uphill path squeezed between the hills and the lush forest. You spend a good couple of minutes passing a haunting meadow, filled with dozens, maybe 100 cut-down trees, now overgrown by bushes and grass. You can't think of another time when you've seen a clearing of such size. Seems dangerous if this goes on. The animals will join forces to strike down whoever's responsible for this in the deforestation. The locals are surely ambitious. I wonder how far they can push it. That's what I was thinking. Once the clearing ends and turns into a corridor of trees and hills, you stop your horse. There's a monster in the middle of the road, reaching out with long arms to grab and devour fruits and leaves from tree crowns, chewing them without haste. It's standing on its hind legs and leaning on a thick tail. As there isn't much hair on its gray skin, you can see its impressive muscles. The beast is 3 times the size of a human, and while each move makes it slow, its long claws and the ease at which it breaks one of the branches make you think its single swing will be enough for it to pierce through your jacket, or, just as likely, that it would simply break your bones and send you into the air. Like most people, you know quite a bit about pebblers. Once they get used to an unfenced farm or a forest garden, getting rid of them can be a huge issue. There aren't many blades able to cut through their thick skin and bones, and a single mistake can put them into a furious charge, encouraging them to look for human dwellings, which they can tear down in revenge. The beast doesn't give you so much as a glance, but also doesn't move away. The best you can hope for is that it's going to walk away on its own. Maybe tomorrow, maybe later. Great. That's a bummer. Looks like we're going north, I guess. There's some sort of skirmish happening in the nearby bushes, but the dense leaves block your view. You hear a painful whine, and the plant stops shaking. It's not a person. I'm not going to get involved with nature. Yeah, currently blocked by a pebbler. Alright. Some parts of the road lead uphill, some downhill. The forests are lush, but not too dark. The few foraging deer and boars keep their distance, and the birds are disinterested in your presence, singing cheerfully and preening their feathers. Sounds of an ongoing hunt reach you from the east, but none of the nearby creatures seem bothered. Once you get further north, the colorful meadow reveals tall hills on the side of the stream, but the road leads through a valley. There's a gentle plume of smoke coming from one of the mountains in the west. Doesn't look like a place on fire. Maybe there's a settlement in the mountains. I think I've heard stories about the settlement in the mountains. The road leads to a gentle creek, filled with the buzzing of flies, mosquitoes, and gnats. You don't spot any critters among the tall meadow, tree branches, or rocky slopes. Seeing the shapeless, dark vortex of wings, Sodal snorts. You're currently on the southern bank. Yep, right there. No critters among the branches. You're currently on the southern bank. It'll take some time, but I'll wrap myself up with every piece of clothing I own. I don't care. Just, gross. Yeah, let's look for a different route. Oh, ride forward with the blazing torch. I think that would still be a bad idea. Let's keep looking around. The path is barely squeezed between the hills, with no signs of settlements or game trails. The grasses are too tall and dense to allow you to safely ride through the wilderness. You won't reach the other bank without entering the swamp. We'll try the blazing torch. You move away from the creek, get on your feet, and unpack the tinderbox, the wooden stave, and the set of rags, as well as the oil. After you assemble a torch, you sit down on the ground, preparing the flint and the linen char cloth. Decades ago, before the southern invasion, people used fire strikers made of thick steel, but all you have is a cube-like piece of harsh pyrite. It's not ideal, but it's enough for a couple of sparks. Holding the fire, you get back in the saddle. You swing your weapon left and right. There isn't as much smoke as you expected. Oh boy. Once you get closer to the ford, countless creatures beset you, filling your eyes, mouth, and nose, hitting you like squishy, buzzing hail. You ride forward blindly, instantly forgetting about your preparations, trying to get out of here as fast as you can. But the insects are sticking with you for much longer than the smoke. It takes a few minutes for you to escape, the red marks on your skin starting to burn. You get down to put out the torch by rubbing it against the beaten track. Sodal swishes its tail angrily and gives you a reproachful look, pinning its ears to the back of its head. Unless you find an easier way to protect yourself, the insects will keep slowing you down. Okay, now what? I can't even go that way? I have to keep. Yeah. For most of the time, you're surrounded by yellow meadows. The trees on your left get sparser, while the few lonely birches on your right still bear the signs of tapping, marked with knife cuts, tied with cords. Some of them still carry wooden vessels, as if they were simply abandoned. Maybe last spring, maybe before that. A few of the trees were already dried out, and the winds managed to knock them down. As you get closer to the crossroads, the ground gets muddy. The beaten path avoids the wetlands as much as it can. The screeches and hisses mix with the buzzing of insects, and as you reach a smaller pond, there are signs of blood on its bank. The air is moist and heavy, and has a hint of rotting meat to it. You're right. It may still be early, but it's better to avoid the bogs when nighttime approaches. Such places rarely have fine roads. Duly noted. Bogs are darker than forests. The local creatures start their hunt up to an hour earlier. Great. The trees and bushes are sparse here, growing from the barren grassland. Some of them bear late summer fruits. A group of wayfarers is spread around a broken signpost and the abandoned cart. They're skinny but healthy, and are standing upright. They're wearing humble, dim gambesons on top of their hemp tunics and pants, all of them worn, but in some cases undyed, while others are dark green or brown. 4 of these individuals wear cloaks, and are armed with spears, bows, stone maces. On their necks, wrists, and belts you spot small talismans, fangs, bones, wooden beads, leather straps. There's also the 5th figure, standing a bit in the back with lowered shoulders. Unlike the others, they're hooded, and in such a manner that you doubt they can see anything other than their own boots. Their clothes are shabby, torn, but your eyes mostly turn to the club, as bow as long as its a bow as long as its owner, as tall and thick as a leg, and tall and thick as a leg resting with one end on the ground. You get closer, and the person raises the weapon with just one arm, but another traveler gestures for them to stop, and they do so right away, freezing in place. The man behind the gesture doesn't approach you, just nods. Safe travels, stranger. Maybe early, but the bogs aren't safe. Better keep moving. You'll find an inn. You try to digest his thick accent. He's broad-shouldered with a large belly, but the scars on his face sculpt an image of someone who's earned their share of food on many skirmishes. He doesn't reach for his weapon and pushes one of his companions closer to the cart. She kneels by an empty box and looks inside of it. The man observes you with a little curiosity. I nod at their cart. Need any help? He makes an annoyed grimace. Not really. Timber's sickening, moldy, and wet. Ooh, bugs. We're checking on the place, but barely seems to. But seems to bad this year for it. But seems to yikes. Seems to be a bad year for it, I guess. He looks at his companions, who simply shrug and spread out to look at the cart. All but the bone to bow, who doesn't move an inch. I cannot say I have time to loaf. You've questions to ask and be be quick on that. Be quick. Just don't put us to sleep. I don't give a shit. Very well, stranger. His companions carry on with their work. The one with the bow remains silent and still, like a statue. I got no interest in trying to pick fights with these guys. These guys are probably looters or exiles. In either case, it's really none of my business what they're doing. So, moving right along. Okay. Now, I want to know if I could intersect with the town this guy's protecting. I'm anticipating there's probably going to be some kind of mountain right there. But let's try. Let's just see what we see, you know? You're not used to the scent of bogs, but you aren't expecting them to be so gentle. The humid air makes you think of smoked meat, and even though you ride by a few rotting carcasses and animal droppings, just as often you cross tiny meadows of pink, yellow, and red flowers. The noises tell stories of never-ending wars between the swarms of insects, frogs in their hideouts, snakes lurking among the purple grasses, birds patrolling both the water and the sky, and the saurians preparing to move from beneath the surface. You can't separate the sounds of the living from those of the dying, if they're even different at all. You reach a boulder in the middle of the road, on the edges of a large pond. You reach a boulder in the middle of the road on the edge of a large pond. The road splits from here in two directions, but the only smoke you see is in the southeast. From the saddle, I see no creature standing in my way. That's good. I'm still getting the scent of the land, so I'll just keep exploring around this area. The leafless plant resembles the tree roots. The leafless plants resemble tree roots rather than creepers, even though they're dark green and sway from side to side slightly. Sadal stops without command, unwilling to approach the nightmarish gate. There's no other path in sight. You step among the muds and grasses, but some desperate creatures scrape this land clean of any wood they could eat, and it takes a few minutes. It takes you a few moments before you find any that doesn't fall apart under your touch. Once it hits the creepers, they bend back swiftly and try to reach you with loud swish, getting a bit longer as they repeat in this attempt a few times. You tell your mount to step away, but the plants don't chase after you. The dirty ponds are hard to see through. It takes a few minutes before you find a stick long enough to poke water and reach its bottom. Even at the very bank, the water is as deep as your palfrey is tall. It's quite possible that none of these conveniently spread paths appeared here on their own. Could it be that the locals carried much of this soil by themselves, connecting the bogs with other parts of the peninsula? Before you have time to dwell on it, you jump back, dodging the strike of a green saurian. You run away so quickly it gives up its pursuit. Yeah, no fucking thanks on that one, my dude. The road takes you to the edge of the woods. A few trees have found lucky scraps of soil towering above the water, while others, shorter and not as lush, have roots sunk in the pond. Some of the plants were felled with tools, so the route itself isn't so dark, while the few sunbeams getting through the weaker branches on your left are surrounded by darkness and swarms of insects. Help me! Help! A sudden cry, as well as screams of pain reaches you from between the trees. A woman or child. Among the green and red leaves, you don't see any unusual colors. Come to think of it, there's but a few creatures in sight other than the flies and mosquitoes. The dark-winged birds are quiet. The sparse toads let out sporadic tense croaks. Fine, gotta help. You lean towards the pond. It's cleaner than in the other parts of the bog, allowing you to see the bottom. Parts of it are still more than knee-deep, and the sulfuric odor makes you step away with a frown. The brownish color can't hide all the bones and the plant remains from sticking out of the bed. I'm gonna be wet. Oh, fuck it. You get slower with every step as your pants and boots are soaked in water and mud. The cold water makes you shiver, and the sulfuric odor makes you glance at the animal bones sticking out of the pond bed. The voice doesn't stop. You gather your bravery and move forward, disturbing the sentiment so much that it forms a cloud of mud after every step. You run into the trees. It leads you deeper into the trees, but your clothes turn every step into a struggle. You think it's coming from one of the larger plants, but the crown's so dense you can barely see anything beneath the branches. Something lands on your back and you plunge into the water, getting pinned down into the mud by massive paws. You're choking, hearing only splashes. You try to roll away and knock the creature off, but it's heavy, with larger paws and strong legs. In panic, you gasp for air, filling your mouth with dirt. The bite shatters your skull. Lita's soul has left its shell. Fuck, dude. Okay. Help, help. Sudden cry as well as screams of pain. I'm glad that they're not making me do the whole thing over. I try to spot, and nothing's there. Alright, dismount and grab my axe. Alright, take everything below my waist. You undo your boots and buckles and then hang your pants on the saddle. As your naked skin touches the water, you expected it to be more like slime, but nothing of the sort happens. Only your eyes and nose notice the difference between this place and a regular pond. The cold water makes you shiver. The voice doesn't stop. You gather your bravery and move forward, disturbing the sentiment so much that it forms a cloud after every step. You run into the trees. As you walk among, get pinned down, try to get out of the water. You try and while it's heavy, paws struggling. If I gasp for air and look at the beast, the cat's legs are bent, ready to jump. Wide and muscular, its eyes staring at you without a blink, are round and yellow with pitch black irises in the center. It's waist high, with its chin hanging just above the water, and a jaw that could bite off your limb at a heartbeat. It has short hair and whiskers, and a nose as big as your hand. Even without the dirt, it's almost black, with glimpses of yellow that look like a rose pattern on its sides and dots on its head. You can't see the creature's paws through the now clouded water. The cat lets out a growl, like a saw cutting a log. It's unscathed, confident. When you hear the flapping of wings, it's already too late. Bird talons sink into your shoulder, and once you get distracted, the cat darts forward, reaching for your thighs. You evade its first strike, but then it pushes your stomach with its huge paw, cutting through the armor. Before you can reach it with your blade, it's already out of your range. God damn. Your gambeson keeps you in one piece. The gray bird also flies away, now circling around you, gracefully avoiding the tree trunks and branches. It has a red tail and a short, curved, vulture-like beak. It growls, just like the cat did a moment ago. And you notice that the human screams have disappeared. Ah, God, it was bait. The cat looks into your eyes, then roars. As it moves forward, you don't see any wounds on its shell. Its companion circles around you, looking for an opportunity to attack from above. The bird distracts you. Oh my God, the bird distracts you by pecking at your hair, jacket, and hands. You do your best to evade the cat's attack and then to strike it as it charges at you, but your attempt fails miserably. It manages to reach your stomach with its claws, slashing through your jacket. You're bleeding. Your gambeson was already in such bad shape that it made little difference. Struggling to push away with my axe. The cat looks into your eyes, then roars. As it moves forward, you don't see any wounds on its shell. Yeah, right. You wait for the bird to dive at you, then take a swing. Using your time to get further away from the cat, the blade sends halves of the raven-sized creature into the water, to the enjoyment of the local scavengers. A few gray and red feathers are drifting next to you. The cat roars toward its dead companion, and then looks into your eyes. As it moves forward, you don't see any wounds on its shell. No. You do your best. Oh my god. You do your best to evade the cat's attack. Oh, I'm dead. Fuck me. I guess we're moving on. That's so annoying. Sadal seems to agree with your decision and enters a trot, taking you further east. A minute passes, but you still hear the constant shouts as if someone's getting whipped to the very bones. Fuck. I mean, I guess it's a trap. It's the only way that I can explain it. Do I want to... Oh, that's if I go back to the old forest garden. It's fine. Keep going. That's so stupid. Those guys killed me twice. You ride along shallow waters on one side and flooded trees on the other. Please go to sleep, phone. Why are you still awake? Okay, you reach what seems like the end of the road. The turn south is already overgrown, and most likely abandoned after it was devoured by the bog. But as you look north, you see a wide clearing that, with time, has become a meadow, and a lonely hut at the end of an often-traveled path. At first, you ride down slightly, following the twisted trail. There's plenty of puddles around, as well as brown, gray, and purple grasses, but all of them are too short for any lurking predators, and the few foxes you see don't pay you any attention. You pass by fresh tracks of heavy, hooved beasts, but spot no wild game in sight. Your ears can't free themselves from the birds, rodents, and the dragonflies. The farther north you ride, the shorter the grass gets. These vast peat fields, broader than 2 or 3 villages placed side by side, are many years old. The turf bricks surrounding the solitary hut are still fresh, drying in the late summer's light. I was looking at the thing. The scent of this area is like that of no bog you've ever encountered. Instead of a sublime aroma of healthy soil, it's intense, sulphury, leaving almost a sour taste on your tongue. The short scarp is dripping with water, like a running sore of the earth, carved with spade and muscle. The house, made of birchwood, dried turf, and blanket of soil, is a structure you're not too familiar with, but you imagine its interiors are much smaller than they appear to be. The walls are a few feet thick and keep in the warmth, and such roofs tend to get soggy until they collapse after a decade or so. The only soul in sight is sitting on a bench, stuffing his mouth with fistfuls of green leaves that he takes out of a small basket placed on his knees. I introduce myself. Still chewing, he mutters something in a response, then shakes his hairy head, swallows, and puts the basket away. He stands up, takes a single step forward, approaching the edge of the scarp. His arms are entangled by green creepers, longer than he is tall, and they rub against the ground after each step. And judging by the way they occasionally twitch, they're very much alive, even though you can't see from where they originate. Leto, the Road Warden, he repeats, this time clearly. He moves his sealed lips left and right as if he's tasting your name, still not sure if he should swallow it or spit it out. Your face is familiar, but not this. He points at your mount, staring at it for a good minute. His voice is quiet and young, not older than 30. If you were standing next to each other, he would be almost a head shorter than you. But for now, he towers above you. He has sunken cheeks and sloped shoulders, while his gray woolen robe is never pretty. It's now close to being a rag, and his sandals reveal long toenails. His eyes are as brown and dark as the grasses of this very bog. His left earring is made of a tusk and a feather, while the right one is an hourglass made out of silver. Though a broken wing makes it at all times tilted under its own weight. The leather strips on his wrists and ankles hold beads, a piece of amber, old game dice, and tiny skulls of birds and critters. Even more cords are hanging from his neck, some of them so long they reach his stomach. They carry countless amulets, some of them torn, dried, shabby, or fragmented, and you spot among them small boxes made out of wood and bone, as well as leather pouches which hide even more secrets. Were you here before? Mayhap I dreamt you in my sleep, he said, and his voice and look are absent. If so, I am Thyrsus, the Turf Warden. He observes you keenly, letting out an approving grunt. No, it isn't your shell I saw, but your wandering eyes. Hands used to touch beasts more than humans. Ass burning from the saddle and cold sweat for nights. 'Twas a man before you here, a Styrian, and was as lost as you are. Lost, but not unwelcome. Some plants are blocking the way to the White Marshes. How about the road south of here? Do you live here all by yourself? Do you know anything about a Styrian's whereabouts? If it's a scrap of land, I think might be cursed. No. Do you know anything about where? Hidden. Know what? I may. His amulets rattle after his triumphant announcement, but then he looks at the clouds in the distance. You wait for him to carry on, to no avail. He nods to himself. Didn't notice it's been so long. Fall's almost here. Is he your client, or do you share a goal? He crosses his arms, making the creepers hit his amulets. Never had a witch or a warlock at home? It's wrong for me to speak about others. I'll take on my pyre a lot for shame and doubt, and I need to be trusted. People claim that he and your tribe claims something big. He rolls his eyes, shrugging his arms and showing empty palms. Yet the nervous twitches of the creepers add little to his innocent demeanor. He and I traded a few times, but I didn't bed with him or offer him mint and stew. He said he may have a job for me in the woods, and I told him I don't need his bones anymore. When asked what he did need, Thyrsus purses his lips. I want things to change, is all. I wake up to awoken shells in the fogs and glossy as robbers threatening my family. All I want for this cursed land to be normal. His yawn comes out of nowhere, but you then notice his drooped shoulders and heavy eyelids. And yep, that warden told me he's gonna take care of it. Well, not at my place, for sure. To prove his point, he raises one of his creepers and opens the door. But from where you're sitting, you see mostly the cold fireplace and the darkness behind it. But you do have an idea. Yep, at a monster's lair, most likely. You meet his eyes. Any monster in particular? He looks away and reaches for one of his bracelets. He asked me for help with many. Was heading for a journey, he said. Needed bogey balms to scare animals away. You push him a bit, but he doesn't have to think long, as if these questions have been bothering him for the entire season. Weirdest ones were for the harpies, and he wanted ones for sea monsters, but I've no such things. I cannot poison the sea. As you think of what to make of all of it, he starts to tap his toes, taking a deep breath. There's a huntress living in Pelt for the north. This inn at Southern Road, Dalit. Astarion says she knows wild beasts like no other soul, so he is prepared for them anyway. Huntress in pelt, Dalit. Because she deletes the enemies. He yawns loudly. With a horse and no guide, you get swallowed in no time. By monsters and the mud, he raises his hands, waggling his fingers as if he's casting a curse. My green pets keep the troublemakers away, but I can make an exception for the warden, one willing to prove they bring gifts, not troubles. What's the toll? He reaches for his basket and places it on the lower edge of the scarp, crouching right behind it. You look inside. Indeed, it's filled with wild leaves, flowers, and berries. Give me enough for a day or so, and I'll bend the vines for a day or so. Food rations. Dragon bones are, I think that's the coins, right? How much money do I have? No combat experience. Okay. I'm not really sure what a dragon bone is. Yeah, and what did I do with it? Chew it like an auroch? While you're not sure what he means by that, he finally lets out a sigh, and you throw the tiny disc onto his humble supplies. He snaps his fingers. Done. I think I found a scrap of land I think might be cursed, though I'm not sure how to examine it. And you're saying the rest of the north is incursed? He lets out a chuckle, but seeing how you still wait for his advice, he raises one of his creepers. Looking in the distance, scratches it. I've no cure for that, but ask Eudocia, the witch from the other side of the woods, far east. Mayhaps she has a wand or something. Ah, boy. No, I'm gonna leave that. So, peat fields. So this was the place that I don't think I could go, right? Well, this is the bog. That was the buggy bugs. The creepers. Do I think I can? He said give me about a day or so. So let's go back over here. I think tomorrow we should be able to get through those creepers. The sparse trees and shrubs grow strong, but there are no fruits left. Only birds nest among the branches, and leftovers spread in the short grass. That's where those guys were. But they're not there anymore. You leave the wetlands behind. The pebbled road runs through the hillside, with tall grasses and rock faces above you, and long and dark, lush forests below. Chunks of this path were shaped by human tools, who knows how many centuries ago. To widen it, the builders dug through the uneven boulders and used rocks and logs to fill up the cavities with thousands of rocks, each one smaller than your fist. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. Sounds like it's an ambush waiting to happen. Well, you have a good view of what's happening between the trees. On your right, the bushes and shrubs grow so densely between them that you can't imagine entering these woods on your own. Farther south, there are plumes of smoke. That sounds scary. At the top of the hill, you reach a stone wall with a quiet place with no smoke coming from behind it. You look inside and see the glimpse of a peaceful ruin. While the main road is beaten and easier for hooves to trod, the destroyed gate and remains in the front yard have almost been reclaimed by the short grasses. You seek any suspicious movement, but the place seems to be free of inhabitants larger than a falcon. The air is fresh, and the winds shake the tree crowns gently. The hamlet could be a hunter's shelter, a military outpost, or a storehouse for traders, but you spot no fresh human trails. The damaged door and gate are years old. soggy and moldy, and judging by the squirrels, birds, and the animal feces you see in the grass, this place is but a part of the wilderness. The roof collapsed only a few years back, turning into food for mushrooms. The outer wall looks generations old, but it used to be maintained. Some of its materials came from different times and areas. I could go behind the building. Let me enter. It's a simple chamber with no furniture that would explain its purpose. The fireplace is buried beneath the roof. You inspect the walls, made of hundreds of small rocks dressed with a chisel. The trash is heavy from the moisture. You push it with your boot, which starts a commotion among gray, disoriented bugs. Removing the rubble would take some effort, but for now it doesn't look like there's anything of value left behind. With enough wood, a group of builders could restore this hamlet in just a few days. You hear a rustle come from the backyard. You look through a crumbling wall and notice the movement of reddish fur. Not a tall creature. Permamax. Its touch calms you. The sound of animal steps are careful and light. The chaos sparks right after you approach the tree stump. The dusk fox's growls sound like a mix of an obnoxious bird and an infant. One of the animals, standing only a few feet away from you, is jumping and showcasing its tiny, sharp teeth and a raccoon-like black mask on its little head. The animal, with its thick brownish-gray fur, seems more stout than any red fox. The second loud creature jumps on the table, made of halved trunk. Unlike the first one, it has brighter, golden fur. It bends one of its forelegs, observing you with dark eyes. Not furious nor scared, rather sad and protective. Its growl turns into a miserable whine. The beasts are not even waist high, but their number may be an issue. There's yet another sound coming from behind you, and even more from the bushes nearby. Great. I try to step away and count them. Ugh! You take a quick glance and evade the creatures in front of you as it tries to bite your leg, but you then feel the bite on your calf. A third fox was standing right behind you. While it's loud, it's also lumbering about, trying to hold you in place. The noises from the bushes belong to little pups, most likely harmless, although they're doing their best to impersonate guards. You take a step back. Yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here. You pass the weaker fox and run toward your belongings, encouraging the beasts to chase you all the way to the gate as they growl with determination. For now, they stay in the shelter, filled with pride. You and Sadal take a few steps away. This place was already abandoned, so I'll let the dusk foxes stay. They aren't threatening anyone. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you sure you want to leave this place to its fate? Yeah. The dusk foxes observe you to climb the saddle. They're growling and walking in circles. One of the pups knocks down the sibling, starting a playful fight. I don't give a shit about them. Let them live. What the fuck is my problem? They can have their space. They're entitled to it. Like, if that was an actual person's, but apparently this place is falling apart, why am I going to bother them? You're squeezed between the hills and the forests. The only larger beast you spot is a single saurian basking on a boulder, lazily observing you from a safe distance. I need to get healed. Your ears catch the howls coming from the north, long and loud, and as you keep an eye on the rock ledges, you almost miss the drastic shift in the landscape. The forest turns into a lake, and the few plants growing next to the road bear mostly fruit. The road is not as reliable here as it was in the hills. Parts of it are a bit muddy, and the puddles disturb your ride. Yeah, maybe. The deep, loud yells of howlers are piercing your ears, concealing any other sound in the area. They're sitting on branches in the tall grass, not really trying to hide. Their thick black and gold furs cover their entire shells, aside from the charcoal black fences and roundish flat noses and wide nostrils. The younger members of the pack are about the size of your mount's head, but the larger ones would be chest high if it weren't for the fact that they walked on all fours. Their long tails are like an additional arm, helping them climb, hang from the branches, or hold food while they eat. They aren't particularly muscular, but when they form their pink lips into the shape of cups to release their howls, their mouths are so wide they could fit your entire arm inside. As you listen to the shouts, you You reach for your head, you feel a weird itch, but somehow you can't scratch it. Great, I'm allergic. Keeping my distance, I take a look at the hide behind the boulder. The whitish raw hide covers the grass like a blanket, surrounded by paw prints. The howlers don't wait for you to approach it. One of the larger ones jumps on the ground, leaning its heads and challenging you with its gaze. It has rather blunt teeth. Fuck me. You're yards away from the closest tree. The howlers are climbing, swinging, browsing their leaves, and seeking bugs in the meadow. Only a few of them are paying attention to you. You could start with an attack from a distance, but there's no way for you to take down the entire pack. The best you can hope for is scare them off. Forget it. Your turn to grazing stall. Yeah, it's fine. Just seal it. You stretch out your legs and dash ahead. At first, the monkeys move away within a few unconvinced yells, but then those from above start to howl, even deeper than before. You feel as if your guts are starting to move, hitting against each other. You soon get dizzy, and the pain enters your skull as if you're getting hit by a smith's hammer, time and time again. Yet you manage to stay calm, focused on your goal. The larger creatures try to cut your path, but being on the ground, they can't keep up with your legs. Without stopping, you grab the rawhide, then carry on waiting for a few heartbeats before you change direction, rapidly, now getting closer to Sodal. By the time you reach the saddle, the beasts have already abandoned their pursuit. You take a few breaths, then inspect the rawhide. The wet, torn blanket is now worth as much as a bread crust. Still, it's not rotten. If the owner is around, they may recognize it. See you later, buddy. The lakeside is filled with the chirping of cicadas and crickets, as well as the roaring of beasts from the northern hills. Farther down the road, you see tall yellow grasses, interwoven with flowers and bumblebees, while the peaceful water shines just as much as the wing of dragonflies. Okay. This road is often traveled, and the clatter of hooves carries far. Thanks to the vast field of view, the creatures hiding in the meadows are unlikely to jump on animals as large as Sodal. In the distance, you see a palisade and a large building set on the side of a crossroad. Once you get closer, you hear conversation from the wall behind it. Two men are arguing about if they really just heard a horse. I mean, I might as well talk to them, right? I really just want to eat, get some lunch. Sodal carries you towards the open gate on its own, welcoming an opportunity to rest by pushing out the air loudly through its nostrils. A nearby wooden pen wouldn't offer as much space for a horse, but should be enough for grazing and a nap. As you dismount, two men get up from the front stairs. Their clean-shaven faces reveal that they're in their early 20s. The first one's taller than you, broad-shouldered, and wears light brown pants and a darker jacket, both of them made of leather. With an inviting smile, he gets up and moves to open the enclosure. His steps are heavy and slow, but every movement is marked with care, ensuring he won't knock down anything or anyone. The second man looks as different from his colleague as the sun from the moon. He's unusually short and wears a heavy cloak made of black fur, so large it covers his entire shell. He opens the door of the building, hides his hand, and peeks into the room. Foggy, a messenger, come. A hanging barrel sways in the wind, marking the place as an inn or a tavern. The building resembles a merchant's house from Hovleven, whitewashed with oiled, elegant wooden beams. The fragile walls are high enough to avoid flooded and snow, but you have no doubt that a troll or even a pebbler could easily break through them. The palisade is short, has hardly any support, and has no walkway for crossbowmen. Hardly enough for even a makeshift hamlet. Yet, it's the open harbor that makes you uneasy. Aside from the fish, any creature, aquatic or not, could just walk into the yard, undisturbed. The path is covered with paw prints and claw marks. Yeah, no kidding. Well, we're not staying here, it's noon. A black and white bird swoops into the water, then flaps its wings and takes off with a silver twitching creature in its talons. The large man clears his throat. And what have we here? Coming from afar, friend? Are there now horses in the howlers? His voice is stentorian, close to a shout. You vaguely recognize his accent as one of the city harbor. Quite far, so I came from Haldovan. I think actually it might be good to say that, because maybe not. He puts his hand to his forehead and pretends to look at something above the lake. But I do see well enough. The city hides in your voice. A long way you had. You hear heavy footsteps. A woman shows up in the doorway and looks at you from the top of the stairs. She's even more towering and stout than her son, the man who just welcomed you. With a massive chest and a pear-shaped face with a prominent chin, her movements are composed and confident. She may be older than 50, with a mixture of gray hair and dark blonde hair. She has only one arm, the left one, notably muscular and with a hand so large it could likely chop off Sadal's head with a single strike, or crush yours like a berry. Through the slit of her robe, made of creamy worn fur, you spot her trunk-like legs. Holy fuck. She runs her eyes over your blade, armor, and mount. Her lips form something of a smile, distorted by the scar that runs through her mouth. He spreads his arms, forming a chain between you and her. Meet Foggy, friend. Ma, the rider has come to us from Havlevin. Such a long way. His powerful voice turns timid, and he keeps turning his head from left to right and back. I bet you're hungry, aye? The woman looks at him with amusement, then glances at your palfrey. If you're after food, I hope you know how to hunt. The land here is barren for us, but it's a feast for boars, squirrels, and sparrows. She vaguely stretches out her only hand. What brings you to Foggy Lake, love? Just stopping by? Her voice is hoarse, like that of a traveler who's spent too many autumn nights in cold tents, yet carries a hint of motherly concern. You won't find another shelter in this part of the Dragonwoods, especially not in the creeks. She scratches her broad chin with sausage-like fingers. You drink? Alright, hang on a second. Let me feed my kitty cat real fast. Do I drink in good company? I shake my head, but I don't, but go ahead, I'll accompany you. Wouldn't dare to insult your hospitality from time to time. Wow. From time to time. And I'd say this is the very right time. Her shouting enthusiasm makes your mount snort. Come, dear, share a story with me. And a mug. Without waiting for your response, she walks inside. The tall man takes a deep breath. Go ahead, we'll take care of your horse, he encourages you with a gesture. And by that he means he won't do anything with it, as the man in black fur. Whenever his screechy words follow the deep voice as if his companions, this sounds like a brat. Whenever his screechy words follow the deep voice as if his companions, he sounds like a brat. We won't be feeding or washing beasts that aren't going in a stew, but we'll keep an eye on it. They find new spots to rest, the side of a boat, and a stool near the palisade. The narrow segmented window shutters let in a lot of light without letting the beast inside. The air is humid but carries not a hint of putridity. The heels of Foggy's boots make her step thunder, even though the planks don't creak. Make yourself at home, she says without looking at you, heading to the trapdoor in the corner. I'll just grab a little something. Great, she's gonna fucking grab a crossbow. You climb up the simple rope ladder and reach the attic. It smells like a haystack. The floor is covered with animal furs, bags, and clothes. There's a soul sitting in the corner. A bearded man in his 20s who has only the right hand. What the fuck? Though unlike the tavern keepers, he has kept the rest of his arm. Okay, so he's got an arm but no hand. His sleepy eyes observe you without a word. After he gives you the nod, he starts to put on his boots. The room is crammed with stuff. A bear pelt on the ground would be a nice resting spot, but the place doesn't look like a real home. No chests, no cabinets for clothes, no toys or tools or simple crafts that would fill the time during rainy evenings. Living with so many windows in winter would be a struggle. One could clear this place in one morning and move all that's worth saving onto a single wagon. The only things of exceptional value are the cauldron, made of pricey steel, and the hanging head of an insect-like monster. You're right there. Its mandibles don't move and the dim eyes seem intact, and its armored head tells a long story of survival through scratches and cuts. You glance at the blood on the table, the scattered yellow feathers, and a bowl of guts and talons. Yeah, it sounds like lunch. You find yourself a clean stool. Foggy shows up soon, smiling, holding 2 cups in her hand, a bottle in her fingers, and a cloth under her shoulder. She puts everything on a stool and wipes the table clean. Forgive the mess, it's just a part of the job, she explains without a hint of apology. I'd rather dress birds in the yard, but the blood lures beasts. Sometimes the folks from creeks bring us a meal, but we need to take care of ourselves. She throws the bloody cloth back into the bucket, making a splash, then sits on the stool, making it look like it was made for a doll. She rests her elbows on the table and looks you in the eyes. Her voice is warm yet intrusive. So, who am I dealing with? The bottle removes its seal seemingly by itself. The wax floats in the air briefly, then lands on the table gently. Without a word, she pours a thick liquid into the cups with her only hand, but doesn't offer you your drink yet. Yeah. She approaches a window above the table and looks outside. Your beast won't make it easy for us, dear. She places her hand on the shutters. It's not a city inn. I don't cook for a smile, and I don't work to feel noble. I allow folks to lie down there for free. She points to the bear fur with her broad chin, but that's about it. If your horse stays outside, it'll lure beasts to us, but if we move it here upstairs, it'll leave droppings on my floor. She gets annoyed even by the idea of it happening. If you want to rest here, love, be ready to either pay with a coin or some food rations, or to spend the night keeping your mount quiet. And clean up after in the morning, will you? She gives you a wide grin and moves back to the stool. How go ahead, enjoy your drink. You raise the cup to your nose. You smell flowers, yeast, and hops. The liquid is golden on the edges, but resembles a red amber in the center. It's as thick as an herbal medicament. You look at your companion, seeking a hint of what's expected of you. In some places, people gulp down their mead, but your vessel allows you to appreciate the aroma. The huge keeper smiles and takes a sip. You follow her lead. The drink touches your lips. It's warm, hiding none of its subtleties. Drinking mead is a never-ending conflict between holding the taste in your mouth and saving yourself from the tormenting sweetness of honey. Yet the flavors of where am I? Our flowers are just as present, too difficult to capture just yet. Foggy leans forward with an elbow resting on the table. Well, for me it's a lazy day, and at least the rain spare us, so nicely holding off till the evenings. Oh, that's fucked up. You don't look like someone. Oh, no. I thought I said you look like someone. You seem to be different. What's the story behind this place? It can't be a few more than years old. It's our third summer under the roof of Foggy Lake, but the palisade is older. Used to be a camping spot for the bird catchers from creeks, and there are fish here that don't swim in our streams. When we were but newcomers in the north, these lands were hard to bend, but the beasts got used to us with time. A melancholy crawls into her eyes. She observes the meat in her cup. Every year or so we added something new. The rocks for a campfire, some stools, a fence, a firewood shed, a boat. At one point we brought the lumber from the White Marshes and built a cabin like the ones in the Eastern Road. More folks started resting here, even traders from the Gale Rocks and Old Pagos. A plenty fine spot for an inn, Her smile is warm. I'm building my home from nothing, you could say, and not for the first time. How about you? Does any of it sound tempting? That's honestly really admirable. She's actually like building this. It sounds like she's really proud of what she's doing. What's like I myself after I saved some dragons? My home is where I reckon find kind people. She chuckles. You can always find some folks who are somewhat kind some of the time, but all of them have their limits on bad days. Without a place to return to, you're missing out on souls and their stories. She looks you in the eyes with a motherly concern. Or, who knows, maybe you're different. How do you say safe from the beasts? Quick legs, love. Her brief yet thunderous laughter makes you flinch. We don't leave any food outside, but our cauldron smells. Every now and then something scary shows up. We lock ourselves in here, for days if we have to. Our windows help us keep an eye on the yard. Better that than leaving the hamlet to goblins. You mentioned that having no wall from the lakeside is quite a risk. She nods in agreement and takes another sip. We don't bring children and old folks around, but this part of the peninsula is not so bad, at least in the sunlight. Not much food growing or running around unless you can live on fish and bread. Wait, not much food growing or running around unless you can live on fish and birds. And the folks of the creeks are great hunters, the greatest around. But isn't there a harbor in the city as well? How do you keep the creatures away? These two avoiding hopefully the guards and sailors make it too dangerous. They mostly stay in the water waiting for trash or drunkards to fall off a bridge. Every now and then something large shows up between boats and then enters the streets. People learn to run away and leave it to the soldiers, but from that down there are casualties. It's actually the flying beasts that bother us. I like that. You describe the harpies and other creatures, and how the city folk do their chores with spears by their side. The kids are told to stay inside unless they're supervised. Foggy gives you a long look. So that's how the cities are when there's no iron for bolts and crossbows. I now wonder what the capital looks like. I mean, not that it's important anymore, not without the emperors. Oh, I hunt for nothing. Not since I lost my arm. And the boys outside are not made for it either. They have no drive to fight, you see, and grew up to be wimps. They sometimes club down a hare, but we're all about foraging and bird traps now. The folks in the creeks do the real hunting. Runners, moflons, rats, sometimes a buffalo or a saurian. We have no soil for fields, so game meat is all we have left. She stretches out, getting taller. Do you hunt often? Sometimes. If I'm about to starve, I don't pick. You picked a rough trade for yourself, then. I used to like it. Hunting, sure. But even more so crushing the undead. I even cut down a few bandits for good pay, but now, when my dumb ape of a son goes on a longer trip, my heart pounds like a hammer. I couldn't go on like this. Bandits also have mothers, You seem to be in for some expensive drinks. The pricey ones are gifts I received or treasures I found when I was young. I also bought a few. I like to offer something unusual to the wealthier or more promising guests. She tilts her cup. I dabbled with some recipes myself. I have plenty of brewing tools, though I can name maybe half of them. Still, from ales to hard drinks, I've had some successes. What brought you north? Once you burn enough dead friends and relatives, clean table starts to look plenty tempting. She leans forward in another look at her bottle, sealing it with an approving nod. My mom and pa were both big and strong. One time they saw me sitting on this kid, twisting an arm, so they started to teach me. Staff duels, running, lifting barrels and rocks. Thankfully, the army chieftain said I wasn't disciplined enough. She rubs the scars on her forehead. So I did a lot of things. Escorted some merchants, joined a group of adventurers, hunted for bounties, guarded a village, temple. The last memory makes her voice gloomy. Not all of these things make me proud. She smells the meat in her cup but doesn't take a sip. I moved here only after I lost my arm, when the folks were fleeing the invasion. I took Elan, a casket of dragons, and joined a more organized group. Arm or not, I still have a fierce punch. She lets out a pleased grunt. I was worth keeping around. Her voice can't hide that she's delighted to carry on with her tale. Now that the years are catching up with me, and even more so with my back, I need to build myself up a decent shelter. I crave no adventures, but I'm happy to hear stories from the restless souls. In the meantime, I'll practice this little trick. She points at the cauldron in the middle of the room and starts to make circles with her finger. The ladle mimics the movement, mixing the stew for another minute or two. That's also good for my back. Your name's Foggy, and this is Foggy Lake. Is a tavern named after you, or are you after the lake? Any story there? So you can move things through the thoughts what's going to happen next. You build a real wall. Yeah, like that. Ah, the lake has no name. She moves her cup away and leans forward, resting her elbow on the table. Her voice is playful, warm. Yet, I mean. There will be stories about this place, believe me, and about passing the lake while getting to Foggy's. I may not be a dragon slayer or a holy woman, but one way or another my soul will live on in my name, tied to these walls. She looks at you in silence, then bursts into laughter. You could swear she makes the jars shake. I'm plenty fine being vain. Not everything that is vain is wrong, but probably better example. We all want to be remembered, I think. My pa used to say memories of ours live in the blood of our children, but guess what? My kids die as well. All my brothers or sisters, gone. She pauses, but there's no sadness in her eyes. Stories have better reach, eh? We can tell each other about strangers who lived centuries ago. There's magic in that. What's going to happen next? Why not? Then grow my connections in the villages, buy more hard drinks, build another shed, a cabin even, and hire a private warden for these roads, for my guests. She sips her cup looking at you, but it's all in the distant future. We, at the creeks, need to take care of the eastern route. Clear for the traders. Without trade, all I have is the locals, and they don't even use dragon bones. But why do you care, dear? Are you planning to stay around? I hope to stay on the road. Is that so? All the tales I've heard make me glad I have a place of my own. The trails grow green and thorny. The villages turn empty, and the cities lose their reach. If that's really your plan, it won't end well for you. What will you do without roads? What else, dear? I need help. What do you have for sale? I'm looking for a Starion. She looks at you a moment longer without the slightest movement. And why do you think she's here? Is he here? Her face darkens as she scratches her knees. Don't upset me. He could have been swallowed up by a toad for all I care. While her voice remains calm, her eyes get distrustful. You scared me a little bit. I don't want any nasty rumors. Sure, some of those who travel through Foggy's disappear on the road, but it's a safe place, and we don't hold slaves. You can check and see. When was the last time you saw him? She glances at the window. Same as the others in the late days of spring. We were waiting for his return, me and all the villages. Then moved on. I have no idea where he went. What can you tell me about him? She rests her only hand across her stomach, which you identify as her version of crossing her arms. A customer and an errand runner. What's there to say? Your additional questions don't get any more answers. She brings up the man's looks and equipment without adding much to what you've already learned from Tulia. He was paying with dragons, rarely bartered. That's what city folk do, right? Seeking riches, then locking themselves in a chamber. Prisoners of their might. Well said. Her chuckle makes you think of a wolf's growl. Did he do any job for you? She presses her tongue against her cheekling lips. Well, I'm not sure. He was bringing me news or delivering my messages. Sold me some stuff, sometimes bought a thing or two. His life wasn't really that riveting, just another mug guzzler, sitting in a corner, patching his clothes. Did he tell you anything interesting? It's just what? Something he found in a weird place. Such, stay between me and my guests. This place may be open, maybe too open, but it guards its secrets just fine. You don't sound bothered by it. You see me as someone eager to make friends with a vagabond? I'll take it as a compliment to my skills as a tavern keep. Folks come and go, their faces disappear. Friends die in my arms. Families fade away. There was a different Road Warden years ago, and there's another one now. But there's only one Foggy in the north, and one Elan, that slow son of mine, and one Creeks. I only have so many tears to spare. That's sad. I heard they're bandits to the north. You make an annoyed grimace. What can I tell you, dear? You know how it goes. Lost souls need a new path after an awfulness finds them. That's a quotable line right there. But the years go by and it doesn't get any easier. One day they take a pile of firewood, another one some bread and clothes. After they start hurting folks, there's no way back, even if they're not at all cruel. You ask her some more, but she's reluctant to give you straightforward answers. You don't have to worry about Glacier's band. They hunt, sometimes they take this or that, scavenge after folks who get jumped by beasts, but she's never tried to threaten my place. You're safe here, and why would you want to bother a Road Warden? Let me just see. I'm not really interested in inventory. Hold on a second. Can I eat? Do I even have food? None. Alright, well I gotta buy some stuff. Now you're talking. I could serve you. Well, I can serve you some of my cooking, not food rations, mind you. Need what I can save for the winter season. Let's say you give me a dragon. In return, I'll cook for you 4 times. You just need to ride up when you're hungry. And other than that, you won't take any wood or stone, are you? After a minute, she shows up with a sack and clangs after every step. I can sell you some scraps. She pulls out a couple of iron clasps, nails, and a broken steel blade. A value trash. We found them while foraging. We don't have a furnace in Creeks, but you could sell these bits and pieces to someone else. She observes you for a moment, then shrugs. Let's discuss the price. I don't have any fucking money. Sell. What can I even sell? Nah, love, come back with something I could sell at a profit, maybe hang on a wall. I'm gonna get my fucking ass kicked. I don't really need to wash myself. You enter the bridge and move and says somewhere below you knows a glimmer. Hey, you, step back, run. Without even stepping, you leap towards the yard. A long, teeth-filled mount breaks through the water surface, splashing in every direction. It bites the empty place where you were just standing. While the front limbs, thick-scaled and ending in claws are as large as your fingers, land on the wood. Once the saurian's yellow eyes notice that you're outside its reach, it nonchalantly slides back into the lake. You hear laughter coming from the yard. The large forager who's wearing leather was running to help, but now stands with his hands on his thighs, cackling without the rest. A man in black fur, on the other hand, looks at you with worry. You see a hand kept underneath his cloak as if reaching for something. What are you doing? The lake isn't for outsiders. My bad. He just nods, gesture for his companions to cut it. They both move towards the gate. Alright. I'm fucking leaving. Alright. North, east, or south. Not really interesting going there. We can't go there until tomorrow. That's so fucking far away. Time travel 6:15. Alright. I kind of want to go south. For no real reason, but whatever. The air is fresh, just as it was in the tavern. The light touches the road and shrubs blocked only by the single willow, wild and untrimmed. You're by a lake, too large for you to see its other bank, but the local soil isn't too fertile. There are only a few trees on the horizon, while the struggling bushes and grasses fight with layers of rocks. In the south, you see uninviting hills, cut with tiresome roads. A gray rabbit is cleaning its fur near the brook, but the sound of hooves makes you hop towards the nearest shrub. Right after it sinks into the leaves, you hear it squeal, cut off quickly. Whatever its hunter was, it leaves only behind the rustling of the thicket, a trail of blood. You wait for a long minute with your hand in your axe, but the creature doesn't return. You relax a bit, then turn towards the stone statue of a young woman right there. Such a monument would be better fit for a temple or a rich city folk's house. Here, without any cover, it's already losing shape from the rains and dust. Chunks of the face and hair have already broken off. It has detailed and human-like proportions, and the clothes are like fabric petrified by a spell. The statue carries an unusual traveling equipment, a walking staff, a gambeson, some simple pants now covered by leaves. Yeah. You dismount and approach the bushes, covering the legs and the pedestal. You see some old wooden bowls as well as rocks. You try to push the leaves away, but their stems are thick and healthy, crowded with insects and spiderwebs. Until you remove the thicket, you won't be able to see if there's anything worth stealing. Thankfully, there are no thorns, and the touch of a leaf doesn't make your finger itchy. No. I consider washing myself at the brook. It would hardly cover your feet, but you could sit on the pebbles and splash yourself with water. Fuck me. I'm not gonna bother. Let's keep going. Further south. I might end up spending the night at that place. The valley is flanked by hills. To the west, the grasses and bushes blend into the horizon and turn into another part of the forest. The southern hills are gray and tall, with fortress-like rock faces and a crown of conifers. The northern ones have countless sand-colored rocks lumped together like piles of rubble and clay, bearing hardly any soil or weeds. The plants here are struggling. The grass is short and yellowish, sometimes dried out. The bushes have silver lakes like many plants from sunny areas. The mushrooms can't hide in the shadows, but as you approach one, you see that it's growing from the remains of a dead bird, while others are covering old branches and other plants. They won't last much longer. You have to squint to spot the first threatening creature. A runner is in the far east, close to the hills, though it completely ignores you, walking around observing the grasses, looking for its next prey. You don't have to worry about it now. There are boot prints on the road, as well as in the short grass, fresher than even on the western roads. Since many mushrooms were cut away with a knife, you notice a few berries on the shrubs. You conclude it's a foraging spot for the people from the north, though there doesn't seem to be much food left. There's almost no prints leading further south. You could try to forage 2 bunches of wild plants. You let Sadal keep itself busy while you walk around, looking for anything edible. It takes a fair bit of time. You don't plan to carry around raw mushrooms and bugs, and just the wild vegetables that need to be washed before you put them in the bag. You finally find a handful of plants, fruits, and nuts. Next time, however, it's not going to be so easy, especially since the runner, a bird both taller and wider than you, observes you carefully, at first from a distance, then circling around you. After about a half an hour, you hear its piercing screech, and the creature runs at you, shaking a beak larger than your head. You throw everything into the sack and get into the saddle. Duly noted. Foraging grounds. Furthermore south. Why not? Might as well stick with it. The only tracks in sight belong to small critters. The cabin has no window, but a stubborn beast could easily burst through the old thatch. The gust of wind doesn't move the door. A curious ibex observes you from the crack, but flees from your gaze. Yeah. You tether Sadal to the supporting beam. Its curious eyes are tracking the crickets that jump among the grass blades. You stretch your limbs, adjust your armor, and reach for your axe. Eavesdrop. You sneak towards the door and crouch down. Maybe a minute, a quiet rattle comes from the inside, something similar to the sound of cracking knuckles. You peek inside and barely see a small part of the dusty room. A large spiderweb is among the knocked down furniture. You unwrap the linen sheet and grab the willow wand, still as smooth as on the day you bought it. The pointy carved twig is thin but heavy from the injected quicksilver. A spider looks at you from the center of the web. Its shell is larger than your head, and the thin legs are longer than your arms. Its countless hair blends in with the walls. They're brown, gray, and cream. What do you do? Okay. What do you try to do? Light. I don't know what you mean. Okay. Fire. You don't possess a crossbow. Okay. Shine. I don't know what you mean. Alright, well, what can I do here? Can I look? I don't know what you mean. You rush forward and attack, and the spider skitters off, shaking the entire web. You fail to avoid its spit. Sticky goos hit your eyes, covering them like glued cloth. No. Drop it open and grab the spider. Drop it open and clean my eyes. Swing my blade left and right without pause. You cut. Oh my god. You cut the air at knee height, but somehow the creature reaches your side. Your calf gets pierced. Your heart beats faster. Yet you keep control of your limbs and remain standing. The next swing lands. The sack of flesh smacks the floor and clicks in agony. You hear only your own heart and the climp and chirping of insects outside. You're getting sweaty. Your eyelids can't even blink. You drop your axe on the ground, then sit on the threshold blindly. God fucking damn it. I just died, didn't I? The saliva tightly clings to your skin. You rip it off, suffering at every pull, but the results come quick. You slow down when you have to get to your eyelids. You're grateful for your reflexes. At least you still have the eyes. At least you still have eyes. You get to see the light slowly, then the shapes, then the thing turns out to be gray and white. You stand up and look around. The room is covered with a thick layer of dust. Getting through the web could be risky. A single thread won't stop you, but a bunch of them could grapple you for good. Yeah, fuck yeah. You bring a twig from the outside and use it as a spool. You don't have much practice wearing gloves. Wearing the gloves, the necessary gestures even more awkward. From time to time, the spider silk breaks, but it shouldn't be a problem for a tailor. It's material stitching, and wouldn't be turned into cloth anyway. You notice maybe a dozen defenseless spiderlings. They flee towards the exit, with their speed limited by their tiny legs. They're smaller than a finger. It's fine. The creatures crawl over the threshold and disappear among the grass blades. It could be the first time they've ever been touched by the sun. Okay, the chest hides a few old water skins and inedible stale rations. Among them, however, you find 2 quarrels for a crossbow. The bones have no obvious owner, but judging by their age and the lack of skull and human-like hands, you doubt they could be awoken by the fogs. The boots, rugged pants, and old sticky tunic, and other scraps are cheap, hide no jewelry. The bowls and mugs are empty. Can I not stay here? Oh my god. Can I? Yes. How do I do that? How do I do that? Oh, whenever I go to sleep. Great. I wanted to stay here. Can I not stay here for the night? Okay, here we go. Oh. I need nighttime shelter. Yeah, this is there. Can't really go there. It's not good. I don't know what's south of here, so let's go back. I'm gonna go back and I'll spend the night there with them. Okay, seek shelter. Foggy Lake it is. Fuck me. Into the shadow. I need. Fuck me. I don't really have a choice. I don't have rent. I have no money. The monster shouts wake you up. The night is bright. From the window in the tavern, you have a good look at the yard. A massive dragon ring. A few massive dragonlings are exploring the courtyard, knocking over wooden tools with their tails, putting their noses into buckets and underneath the stairs. You count 5 of them so far, but you can't see the entire area at once. One of them spots your look and moves closer. Still, it doesn't try to climb through to the door. Maybe it's experienced enough to know it won't get through. Close the shutter slowly. It's an exhausting night. Sadal keeps stepping in place or walking, taking only short naps. You can't count how many times you had to calm it down with your voice, touch him by offering it water or a snack, but nothing helps. You close your eyes for a moment in the late morning and then clean up after your mount. The stench alone is disarming. Foxy looks at you in silence. I'm looking for work. I somehow doubt you're here to forge for me, love. Not that I have any room for another soul. Let me think. She runs her eyes over the shelves and the trophies, but it's the rocks surrounding the fireplace that catch her attention. The folks at Old Pagos are weirdly quiet. They were supposed to stop. There was drop 2 wagons of rocks at my place. Can you check on them? Just find out if they're there. Just find out they're fine. It won't take much work from a rider. You can get there and back in less than a day. Just ride west of here until the road takes you south to the crossroads. Turn west again, and you'll find the village. I'll give you, say, a dragon bone. You say that it's not much, but she wastes it off. A road warden should get familiar with all the villages anyway, right? Just do it when you have a chance. I'll have more coin to you once you prove to be trusted with simpler tasks. It'd be one of the oldest villages in the north, but even if it's not, it's safe with strong walls and safe roads. Their crops are weak, but for generations now they've been cutting stone and building for other tribes in exchange for supplies. Some time ago they tied themselves to the monks, and now they don't look kindly on those who don't follow the orders of the truth. She pauses, twisting her lips to one side, choosing her next words carefully. They're plenty fine folks, true believers. Something lost in the city. Where's my phone? Am I on drugs? Where's my other phone? Let's see. I'll let you know if I learn anything. Time for me to go. Alright, so they said go west and probably right here. right? There's nowhere else I can even go west. I don't know, I guess it's this way. You follow the road, spread between the hills and lonely trees until you reach a solid wooden bridge not older than a generation. You ride uphill, but Sodal manages to keep up. The dark woods in the south are behind a gently humming creek, while the forest on your right was trimmed by the locals. It's a peaceful journey, at least for some time. After a few minutes, you spot a group of wolves feasting on a fallen, furry beast. Maybe a wizened. One of them looks towards you. Christ almighty. The road fades into an old tunnel. There are no signs of mining, no signposts, no human voices. The ceiling is supported by beams, but the light reaches only so far. The chilling wind mercilessly bends the few lonely trees while the shrubs oppose the weather patiently. The side path leading west is somewhat maintained, and you find both boot prints and cart tracks. It leads higher onto the mountains. I don't want to do that. Fuck that. The detour is not as smooth as the main road. A wagon could make it through, but even so, you have to squeeze between some narrow corridors, hoping no beast is going to jump at you from a ledge. You walk, leading your mount with an axe in your hand. In the middle of the road, after reaching one of the higher hills, you take a glance ahead. Even from here, you see the sun reflecting from the ocean, but there's also a pillar of smoke coming from the distant west. There may be a volcano somewhere behind the horizon, but you can't tell if it's part of the peninsula or maybe yet a stranger land. Once you get to the other side of the mountain, you find the northern entrance to the tunnel, blocked by a large bronze gate so tall and wide you're not sure it's something you could open with your muscles alone. There's a keyhole as well, as large as your hand. Unlocking it would be a good idea. You get a good look at the village from a distant hill. It's torn between taming the crags and succumbing to their whims. The village borders are like rotting teeth of a giant, sprinkled around by an ancient spirit. That's one way to describe it. The carved mouths are covered by wooden doors. There are only a few windows, and you can only imagine how dark and cold the gouged-out rooms have to be. The buildings and walls, made of logs and stone blocks, must be much younger than the caves. The impressive whitewashed keep, standing on the top of the hill in the west, could just as well have been built in the city. I think that's this one. Oh, it must be this one. Smoke rises from both sides of the wild river. You see many busy souls as they go about moving tools, food, and timber over the bridge. Your arrival at the eastern gate causes some curious glances, but the only person who approaches you is a man who was sitting at a table discussing something with a few elders. He's carrying a crossbow on his back and a long rusty knife at his side, but he doesn't reach for them. The man has to be older than 40. He wears an elegant blue-green linen tunic, but no armor. His skin is yellowish, like seaweed seen through a sunbeam. His long gray hair is tied in a ponytail, and his beard is trimmed to half a finger of a length. With a few large cysts make him look sickly, but his powerful, truculent voice adds to him strength and confidence. Cheers, stranger. You've reached Gale Rocks, you did? He observes your mount and then looks at the path behind you. I see no caravan from here. Are they coming? He suddenly meets your eyes and his tone gets even harsher. Or are you here to idle about? I think it uses some of the local words and phrases you've only heard coming from the mouths of the oldest of city folk. The vast similarities to the tongue of Holtovin only makes these differences more distracting. Damn. He takes a step closer and examines your appearance, until he raises his shins with reluctance. And who are you? A vagabond? If you're not part of a caravan, I'm not letting you in. Neither here, nor there. Another Road Warden? Are all of them parents in this? Are all of them parents in the South too dumb to teach their kids how to keep their fingers in their own pots? He shakes his head with exaggerated emotions and looks at the elders at the table. Oh, Road Warden. See that? Trying to cut the conversation short, you tell Sadal to follow you inside, but you're stopped right away. Leave it by the walls until it's nightfall, alright? We aren't cleaning our roads after any drifters, bards, or adventurers. Don't worry, we'll keep an eye on it. You tether your horse to the stems of a shrub, and the man nods with approval and then turns around. Can you tell me anything about the village? He stops in place, then glances at your boots. Right. We fish, we salt fish, we sell fish. Our brave ones trade barrels for whatever we can get at other villages, but not much else, so you see. Not much else to it, you see. Life here is slow. Without another word, he returns to the group of elders, where he helps one of them remove bones from their meal. I'm looking for someone. Oh, which person are you looking for? Example, guard. Your search for an inn is futile, and the locals are quite proud that they have no place to waste their days with mugs and dice. They explain that if any caravan needs to stay the night, there's always enough space to empty one of the caves. You need a room to spend the night, you're told. Fulvia may have something. Who is Fulvia? Following the instructions, you reach a building with the entrance from the garden side. You step through the door leading to the mouth of the cave and call the person you were told to speak with. Fulvia, the room keeper. She comes to you from the half-dark corridor. She fits the description you heard, slightly round, partially because of the tunic and the heavy pants hidden beneath the dark green robe. She looks like an eccentric city priest, what with the massive hourglass made of beautifully polished driftwood she wears, and the kerchief covering both neck and hair. One feature that hasn't been mentioned by the locals are her eyes, gray, asymmetrical, partially closed, and unfocused. Once she gets closer, she turns her head, gazing into the rock and pointing her left ear at you. Her steps are confident and her hands keep touching the walls on both sides. She's old, wrinkled and pale, but her voice remains strong. Your first instinct is to nod, only then realizing it won't really help you much. She repeats, "You smell of a horse." Room? Yes. Right. She simply walks down the corridor between the few humble chambers, some of which are inhabited by sleeping souls. After just a few steps, the light coming from the entrance helps you no more. You follow the sounds of boots and the smell of rosemary perfume, then suddenly hear a rock hitting something made of metal. A lit candle makes you sigh with relief. What color? The horse coat. Milestone has to be... Black. The grim messengers. Must not be many of them left. I doubt many chiefs can pick and choose a beast for one task and one for another. The room is far from comforting. The ceiling is only a head above you, the walls are rounded and bare of any decorations, and the only chest looks more like a crude crate. At least the dried grasses covering the sleeping pallet are bug-free and smell of freshness. You won't have to share it. How much for this delight? She chuckles, still turned to you with her profile. Don't worry, you won't be cold, and we won't let anything mold in here. I have a nose for it. You can work for the village for merely a few hours in the morning, move some weights around, or you can pay me 2 coins. I won't take less, for I need none at all. I'll just throw it to Severina's chest in a few days. Okay. A few elderly people stare at you, commenting your appearance, but look away when they notice your attention. Yeah, no kidding. Time to leave. That looks so fucking gross. The roars of the sea reach you first, then the cold wind and the light. There are hardly any shrubs nearby, and as you ride downhill towards the white and gold beach, the sunbeams hit you with full force. The sea here is not like the one from Havlevinsport. The harbor and waters most people see during their busy days are full of life. Ships, warehouses, traders, dockers. And of course there's the Sickle, the barrier island that provides the city with its lagoon, but also serves as a home to dozens of species of birds, monkeys, and rodents. For most people, the sea is never silent. But if one travels to Sickle and looks west, or embarks on a boat and sails away, yet there's yet another view, a very different one, and the never-ending blue, the emptiness, the humming waves, the monsters swimming to the surface just to take a breath, not even interested in the wooden vessels. Many say that if one jumps off a ship with a heavy stone, they'll drown before they touch the seabed. Here, however, water cannot be separated from the rocks that cut through it. Like a swarm of mushrooms in a dark forest, their shapes and sizes vary, but the number that makes them unusual. If you were to name each one, you'd have to make up at least half of the names. Too many to name. There's no doubt where the name of Gale Rocks comes from. The stones piercing through the surface of the water are shaped like beast fangs, as if they're asking ships to dare and test their strength. You follow the sharp turn to the right. The road remains broad enough for carts and wagons and avoids the sands, letting Sadal trot without disturbances. The grasses to the east and south are short. And hardly any shrubs have managed to oppose the harsh winds. The human activity you witness is intense. A large barge is resting on the river, immobilized by ropes and wooden posts, and you see a few people foraging on the beach in the grasses. Even more people, most of them without wrinkles, are gathered by the pier, where they prepare their boats and nets and talk about their plans for the following hours. You reach the end of the beaten path, getting to the stone-made pier, just next to a small dolmen-shaped shed. Only the door seems to be fairly new, and you don't doubt that both of the structures have been repaired many times in the past, crumbling under the touch of waves. You approach a group of standing in front of the shed. Photaios is there. One of them yells and points to the tallest man, dressed in undyed wool and linen. He's discussing with a group of workers, but as you head in his direction, he nods for you to join him on the side. His outfit is heavy, appropriately so for someone who spends long hours under the hits of the cold onshore winds. The massive leather boots, thick tunic and pants, and the heavy cloak now held under his arm makes you wonder if he'd be able to swim. Like most sea folk, he has long limbs, almost no facial hair, and the ears so flat they are hardly noticeable. His neck draws your eyes. It's covered with marks left from the burning suckers of a sea monster, as wide as your finger is long. Below these scars, he's wearing a pendant made of a fist-sized black beak. He speaks first, with a strong and confident voice of a young man no older than 25. We don't really sell any catch of our own. Maybe ask our smokers or the cook. Who are you exactly? After you introduce yourself, the man raises the corner of his mouth in an angry grimace. I won't have much to tell you, Road Warden, like my neighbors. I struggle with day-to-day living. I do not adventures and even less outsider schemes. Oh my god. This is the worst. How do I clean myself? I'm dying. Fucking hell. I don't know where else to go, to be honest. The road east is beaten and clean with enough space to fit wagons side by side. You pass a few plum trees, apple trees, and cherry trees, and many more stumps likely belonging to what has been turned to Foggy Lake. The life in the plains is busy and loud, but so far you don't see any lurking beasts. Judging by the many trampled parts of the meadows and fresh food trails, the foragers search this corner of the peninsula quite often. You reach a shining pond at the edge of a forest. You ride beneath two trimmed trees growing on opposite sides of the path, the columns leading to the Rites Temple. Shouts and heavy steps prepare you for trouble ahead. Two shells are circling around each other. One of them is a four-legged saurian with dark gray skin, as long as your palfrey, but only knee-high. It's wandering left and right along the bank, hissing, repetitively sticking its split tongue out and then retracting it. The stout monster doesn't look like a born hunter of humans, but its long tail is swinging like a whip, and now only threateningly so. But you don't doubt that getting hit by it would likely break your bones. The second one belongs to a brown-skinned man, wearing leather pants, a long brown woolen cloak, and the matching pelt of a wolf on its head and shoulders. like a haunting hood. His voice is both gentle and scared, and he's stretching his hands in front of him, trying to make the beast stay away as if it's a mufflin. A third shell is right in the middle between the other two, a creature you don't recognize from a difference, but is a puddle of its own blood and isn't moving. You stand up in the saddle and get a better view and realize that the corpse on the ground is but that of a white ibex. The man, who acknowledges your presence with a nod, speaks with a hint of playfulness in his voice, asking the saurian to be so nice as to stay away. He then turns towards you and points his prey. Friend, lend me a hand, will you? I'm trying to seize it. As you dismount, the saurian takes a step closer to the pond. How can I help? He grins and triumphantly raises a finger. That's the spirit. This ibex is our destiny, friend. He points at the beast, and as his hat moves around, the loose, shaking jaw distracts you. Say, friend, do you have any fruit in those sacks? Throw some at it. You throw him a sack, and he eagerly nods. Perfect. Go ahead, throw them. You grab apples and pears that don't look so appetizing and toss them towards the beast. They land just next to it. And while it walks left and right, moving its tongue in and out rapidly, it only crushes some of the fruits with its feet. Maybe more would do it. Without asking your permission, the man grabs a few more plums, throwing them right at the beast's head. They land, and the creature cuts the air with its tail, hissing angrily, but other than that, nothing changes. You know what? I think the fruit eaters have the yellow dots on their backs. Maybe you're right, but at least we tried. You win, O great hunter. The brown wolf pounces on its head. Bounces and he steps away from the corpse. Well, my home's in the creeks. You coming for? Your answer turns around and goes uphill. Once you grab the reins and let your mouth forward, great. I don't have any food. You leave the pond behind and approach the woods. Even from a distance, you can see a distinct trail leading between the trees. It's not a forest garden, but it's not bad. With every word, the man's voice gets more cheerful. It's not that gloomy, and I haven't seen a cat in there in a year. But with no cats, there are boars right there right now. And as there are boars, there are also more gargoyles. Better not get too deep, kind traveler. There are no roads here. His face is not much older than 20, shaved with great care. Cleaner than even among the city folk. Jesus Christ. Well, one can never know where their path will lead them. Aye, the spirits can be nastier than a sack of ape shit. But from all the places, I'd be glad to be led to the creeks. We don't starve, the work is hard, but there are merchants above us, and it's a gorgeous place. You know, you'll love it. Sure I will. The road is gentle, but the man is incapable of being silent. Every unusual tree seems to be tied to a story from his life, and he makes sure that you notice the first stream you cross on a new solid bridge, one of many creeks you see, he says with untamed amusement. A thin gorge leads between you and the mountains. This truly feels like the end of the realm. You follow the trail of shouts and laughter. 7 people, about 20 years old each, are gathered at the wooden bridge, leaning against the railing, bathing in the stream, lying on the grass. Pieces of clothing made of fur and leather are spread around, next to the cudgels and throwing clubs. Once the sound of hoofs managed to break through the chattering, the curious young eyes, untouched by wartime, turn towards you, and an excited whisper spreads. The shells are proudly displayed, and the confident smiles are both inviting and challenging. "How's the water?" The hunter greets his tribesfolk while stepping on the logs. "Gentle and warm," says a man resting on his friend's shoulder. "Caught any squirrels?" "There are paths leading in many directions, but the main road will take you uphill." Awkward. As I walk past naked people, I look at the watchtower. There's no reason to be embarrassed. I look at them. The light dances on wet hair, both their heads and crotches luring your eyes just as much as the revealed chests and muscular arms. You've interrupted not just their bath, the soul who's speaking with your guide is embracing another man as he's behind him, while one of the women is keeping her arm around the waist of yet another man. You hardly see any wounds or marks caused by sickness. The harshest days of this group are still ahead. As you move your eyes from one person to another, they greet you with smiles and nods, and the ones you walk by the bridge shift their stances, allowing you to see even more. Once you step off the logs, the hunter chuckles. "Seeking warmth, aye?" The youth here think more about wooing than traveling in beasts, but that's good. It means they're healthy. They're vain as birds, though. You won't find much to talk about with them. As you look behind, you're not so sure he's right. I nod to the group, then follow the man. The palisade is as tall as trees, but being placed on the top of the crags makes it look impassable. What? Why is the gate closed? The hunter turns to the watchtower and repeats his question, only louder. Maybe call Allah? Too blind to see we have a guest, aye? The hardly visible guard with a female voice leans forward. He's coming, Howler, relax. Her shouts hint at no patience towards them. The youth dined in the woods after the bath. Why wouldn't we close? The man glances at you. I wait patiently. They argue a good minute and you realize it's just friendly banter. You don't recognize some of their jokes, referencing events and people you've never met. Their accent resembles Foggy, but is thicker. You'll have to get used to it. Don't let a frond talk you to death, friend, the soul from the tower shouts above the gate. We enter. The sparse clumps of grass survive only on the edges of this spacious yard. The few onlookers wear working clothes, suitable for their hard labor. They're carrying tools, planks, and logs. Ugh, carrying hogs. You're next to a large building of unusual shape. Either a temple or a house of gathering. It makes you think of a cabin that's been getting larger over the course of the years, with the section in the middle being darker and more crude than the outer ones. A slightly overweight man is standing in front of the building, with open arms. Welcome to Creeks, friend. His voice and eyes are gentle, but there's vigor in his stance and gestures. Ephraim was just meant to hunt, but I see he brought a very unusual creature. The hunter rolls his eyes. Don't embarrass us with this prattle. I almost brought us an ibex, but this traveler and I got outnumbered. Long story, but we tried. Now I'm even more interested in the one who's willing to assist strangers in the middle of nowhere. Being close to 30 years old, he's one of the older souls around. Just like the other villagers, he has clothes made of animals, not plants. The leather pants and jacket are humble, but the shoulder cape, reaching from his neck to his elbows, belong to a yellow elk. His brown skin is darker than that of a farmer, and as you look at the outstretched hands, they carry marks of being cut by tools. And I'm Allah, the carpenter. He takes a step forward to the trees and invites you to move forward. Like most men of the village, he's cleanly shaved. How about I show you the rest of the village? It may be humble, but it's as beautiful as a blue starling. Some of your beauties. Sure, I've wasted enough time. Thanks a lot, that sounds lovely. As he grins, you notice the unusually white teeth. He moves with heavy but enthusiastic steps. It won't really take that long, but we've had quite a view. The hunter gives you an embarrassed look. Don't indulge him too much, friend, he says without lowering his voice. He'd be proud of a falling wheelbarrow. Let's take a stroll then, he says as he leads you forward. Your mount can drink at the creek here. You tether your mount to a tree next to drying laundry. Allah points at the land behind the bridge proudly. Our newest addition to the village. The hunters grow old, so we are taking steps away from meat and fruits. You spot only 2 people working in the field, rather a large garden covered with cabbages, carrots, onions, and garlic, indistinguishable from the wild plants growing at the woods. On the path between the two halves of the field, an elderly woman is sitting on a stool, looking in your direction as if you're interrupting her contemplation. Old Haffa will turn this place into a proper farm one day. She has little strength, but the precious memories of her trade. She seems austere. Ephraim snorts, holding in his laughter. Just be happy you haven't grown under her. I'm lucky to have my ears after all the pulling and pinching. Don't overcolor. She cares a lot. I should follow deep in the village. At least about the quiet children. Just let her do the talking. The fewer things you say, the fewer reasons for her to get upset. The bonfire spot is surrounded by logs that were cut into tables and stools. Allah approaches the nearest chair, rubbing its back with his cut hands. When we share a meal, we do so here, sometimes beneath the stars. You'd have to see it. The flames dance on the walls, and the monsters roars and crickets. And the flames dance on the walls to the monster roars and crickets. Ephraim's voice also grows enthusiasm. Dining at the edge of the forest is something you wouldn't forget, unless you can drink. Don't swallow anything stronger than spoiled ibex milk. The Shadow's friend? Terrifying. You glance over the wooden buildings. While the walls seem fine, the roofs are primitive, mostly made of planks that are already soggy and bent. There are a few people working on cleaning bark from a log, but the square is mostly quiet, with a few kids observing you from above their toys. I imagine what such dinners would look like. One big family. A laugh flashes you a disarming white smile. Yeah, a huge one. We don't have any rooms to spare. He looks at the children as they return to their crude wooden toys. They don't realize yet how small our home is. They've hardly seen anyone from the world outside, and the trade occurs at Foggy Lake. And good for them, the hunter chips in. They don't miss much, other than spouses. Other than spouses, we have everything we need. And so far as we have plenty of fresh meat, some of us even too much. He smirks at the carpenter, who in spast turns and walks away. You stand between two of the houses in front of the gate of an animal pen. The walls are made of sharpened trunks and are as tall as two humans. The captured beasts are tethered by ropes, but have enough freedom to wander and graze. 2 brown boars and a black mufloon. Here are our captives, Ephraim declares proudly. I know it's still a bit empty, but we'll crowd it just before winter. Are you going to care for them in the winter? The hunter swallows loudly, already thinking about his next meal. Now they're just here for the meat and skin. Once the snow falls, we'll butcher them. The carpenter gives him a sullen glance, then squeezes the lower edge of his jacket. I'd love to keep them with us. I don't even like meat. We could start a mufloon herd, or any other, but it's too dangerous with such weak defenses. Our houses are too small for them, and having loud beasts outside during the cold months would lure predators. We tried. He falls silent for a bit, and then once he picks up the conversation, his voice returns to its previous proud tone. You'll understand better if you take a look at our old forests, friend. He points at the area behind the palisade. The vast clearing is returning to life, with shrubs spread between the paths and tree stumps. You move to the bridge, then a gateway, and have a chance to look around. We can see the edge of our world from the watchtower, Alad narrates sublimely. In the long distance, the plateau ends, surrounded by cliffs. You either climb up the mountains or fall to your death. Both men tell you about the difficult pass of the village. A desperate camp, then a cabin, then 2, shifting its wooden walls as far as more and more of the trees were cut. Without tree crowns, we can walk no shadows. Beast dens gargoyle eyes. Without tree crowns, we can walk with no shadows, beast dens, gargoyle eyes. This is really better than the forest garden. It would produce much more food. I'm surprised the wrath of the herds hasn't smitten you yet. These pointed sticks won't stop a unicorn. You hit the heart of our worries, friend, Allah admits. We did what we had to do to push the beasts away. They don't feel safe here, and don't seek food on the shrubs as they would on trees. Allah tells you there's one more thing to see, and you walk away. As you walk away, he returns to the matters at hand. The animals keep their distance now, at least in the meadows, so hunting for them gets difficult, and meat is hardly worth any mushrooms, and herbs get bland. A forest garden would solve our problems, sure, but we don't know enough to even start one. Hence, a field of berries. First, we need to know how to feed our children. We lack strength and skill, but we have time. Time comes opportunity. You reach the edge of the village, a cliff as tall as the wall. Beneath you, 2 creeks meet each other and form a gentle river. Where's the gentle river? I don't really see it. Yeah, I guess this is the river. It's gotta be up further there. Oh, look at that, you can... Oh, yeah, cool. Eli's smiling as he leans back against the wall of a house. We plant new ones, but we'll soon have to bring wood from further away. Give the saplings a few years, or however long they grow. A decade. And this is where I leave the 2 of you in your boring tree talks. See me later if you need. I'll be around. I rarely hunt alone. The carpenter watches his departing companion with genial eyes. Well, there's work to be done. A new chair awaits me. He leads you to a humble working station placed at the edge of the square. The tools you notice are very simple, not primitive. We don't have to talk about trade, Leto. What brings you to us? Troubles about bandits, Astarians, villages are much older than you are. I'd like to learn about the peninsula. Our tribe won't be much of a help there, he admits. It was our parents who did all the traveling, and they did so while we were kids, or not yet born. Most of them are already gone, and most of us travel no further than to Foggy's, and only when we have to. I've heard trouble with bandits. He makes an awkward cut with a chisel and lets out a quiet shit. Then starts to rub the plank with his thumb. Bandits, you say? Soldiers from the city have already taken care of them. He pretends there are no bandits in the north. I need to gain his trust. I've heard you had some issues with your eastern path. First he gives you a bright smile, then nods with a sigh. Aye, aye, so our issues are so clear that the folks gossip on them. I'm glad you came to our help, friend, but it doesn't feel right to admit we need help from an outsider. He stands up slowly, walks away, and leaps over to one of the log-made tables, and looks for something in the pile of wood. In this part of the land, there's always something to do for a road warden. He straightens up with a piece of charred wood in his hand and gets back to you. As he draws black lines on the workbench, he mentions a few names. Creeks, Foggies, Gale Rock's there, here's the lake. The map is simplistic and doesn't align with your own understanding of local distances, but you follow his descriptions without issues. The path from here to the south is getting too wild for us. The merchants travel through the other routes, through Howler's Den, passing by old Pagos and white marshes. Once they reach Foggy, they already have full stomachs and many deals closed. And when they travel back, they visit the same places again. Folks already know that trading here takes a long time, so you want me to give them an option to get to you first, and move west without backtracking, and do so all by myself. How exactly? Well, I'm sure you can find some help. He pats his stomach without noticing that he leaves a few black dots on his leather jacket. There's a few things you could do. Follow the eastern roads and see if it's clear. Are there any safe shelters left? Any blockades to get rid of? Is there an overgrown path to burn? Maybe see if there's a road from here to the western crossroads is safe, or if cars can get through the heart of the woods. If you're brave enough. I hope you're a soul with sage judgment. Seeing your puzzled look, he rests his palms on the table with a shy smile. I know I'm vague, but I bet you already know more about these roads than I do, friend. Now, there was the door to unlock when you've already put work in the western road. Where would you like me to start? Wouldn't it be better for you to put your work into the western road? You could split the labor with the other settlements. Where would you like me to start? Go to the shelters set just at the side of the roads. There's a ruined campsite west of Foggy's. He makes a small circle. Or you can go south to a cabin our elders built. It's halfway from here to the river. I've been Forgive me, friend, but you don't look like someone with much experience behind them. You're nothing like a Astarian. He took pride in his self-reliance. Duly noted. They can't be trusted, especially some of them. Okay. I can't really travel, right? Where the fuck am I? Oh, I'm right here. That depends on what you're about to do. The tribe has but a few dragons. I would just want to get clean. This curtain shaped on said engraving a hide on its head. Let's say you get a dragon for any news. Use about a cleared blocked areas and more if it takes real effort to act. Yeah. We have a deal. He flashes you a wide smile and pats his stomach. You won't regret this. Okay, so there's a shelter. The shelter in the west isn't safe. Better stay away from it until the dusk foxes move out. Dusk foxes? After he meets your silence, he carries on. I don't know what that is. You describe their look and the threat they present as Allah observes the clouds, sometimes asking you to explain more. He finally squeezes his cloaks and reaches for Clunge from resting on the workbench. Well, sounds not as dangerous a tribe of goblins, but it may be better for us to hunt them down in the spring. We may need your help then. For now, a single dragon bone will be fair pay for the news. Thanks. There's a big spider at the hunter's cabin, but it's gone now. I'm glad to see you're fine, friend. How's the cabin doing? You answer him a few times, and he stretches his arms. then puts his hands on the back of his head. His eyes are absent. So it will be an easy restoration. Maybe a few logs to swap. And the roofs won't do much any good anymore. It takes your pronounced grunt to blink. It takes your pronounced grunt for him to blink a few times and raise the lid of the case. One for the news. He puts first one on tabletop, then another next to it. And this one is for taking care of the beast. Thanks a lot. Good to see you don't idle around, Road Warden. I'll let you know. As he's staring around, he halts and looks with an exaggerated frown. That's a weird question. You're the first Road Warden I've seen in, well, this season, I think. Did you check the western villages? You'll get to Howler's Den simply by staying on the road. About the eastern path. I'll let you know. I'll see you later. Shallow Creek. Can I please? Oh my god. I jump into the stream. There are no fish or plants who bother us. Alright. I step away. Great. Friend. Have good hunting. Great. That's all I fucking got. Old Hava. I better change. The woman spares you a wry glance, then turns away, focused on the struggling vegetables. She's the only person in the village who wears clothes made of plant fabric, but they're well weathered. Her hands cupping her basket are hotly. How are you doing? What do you have for sale? After a moment, she turns slowly, chewing her bottom lip. We sold what we had. We're lacking hunters. And these will go into a stew if they're worth picking. Without noticing it, she grabs her left forearm with her right hand, but that doesn't stop the twitching. We always have a fish trap to spare. We make them just in case. A large basket. I'll sell you one for a dragon bones. If you want to eat something right away, our cooks would share your roast grouse or a chicken. It'll be cold but fresh. We always have one. You never know when there are maggots in your supplies, and kids shouldn't skip a meal. We'll ask you to tell you more about the patient's gross then. Okay, so roast chicken, basket. How long does that take? Fuck it. I'm not really sure what else to do. Fair eel polish. But what will her shoulders flinch? What would that worth? They can break the skull of a deaf shell. Give me something good to eat, and I'll give you a few tufts of thick wool. I'll think about it. Farewell. Onward. How much time do I have left today? So this is the sea. That's Foggy Lake. I can go further south in here. Let's go here. I'll try to catch some fucking fish with this fish trap I bought. Sit some time thinking of a fish pen. You place the basket on the ground, they grab the bowl and start digging, looking for a few larger worms. You bait the stick and push it inside the basket, locking it between the slides, then cover the entrance with the lid. Trying to keep it together takes a few moments. It will be easier to later on. You attach the entire trap to a tree and place it in the brook, moving it around, making sure it stays in place. Who knows how long it will take for something large enough to swim inside. Still, it would be better to not wait too long, otherwise it might die of hunger. Ugh. I can inspect the fish later tomorrow. Okay. Further south. The gentle road leads upward, getting more rocky and bright as the trees grow sparse. Just in case your eyes run towards the drier parts of the meadow, and you instantly shout at Sadal to make haste. A pack of short-haired wolves, at least 20 members strong, is chasing after you. Their coats are a mixture of yellow, black, and white spots, as if someone threw mud and paint at them like hyenas, I guess. They move towards the road with a human-like speed, and you realize only some of them run straight at you. If it wasn't for your paw for the beast, would have already caught up with you. The trap was perfectly set up, not leaving any path of escape. Your terrified mount is disciplined enough to stay on the beaten path, and even though one of the big-eared wolves almost sinks its teeth into your mount's thigh, you manage to squeeze between the hunters. For the next few minutes, you do your best to get further away, and while your gallop is indeed faster, the wolves easily shorten the distance by moving through the sparse forest. You cross a weird river bridge made of a stone slab, but the chase doesn't stop yet. You think about your sacks and bundles, but the pack won't wait for you to sort through your things. The group gets larger, and as you go larger, the further you go, and as more of its members, even more of its members previously hidden among the rocks and grasses now join the hunt, allowing their tired family members to slow down. You may be able to loosen them after some time, but scaring or wounding some of them may force them to give up. Oh, you better believe it. Push one of them away with Numa. What the fuck? Ugh, sweaty. You reach for your wand and focus your channeling your strike, then push an invisible wave at the wolf that's closest to you, sending it flying. It hits a boulder with a painful cry, but as you get away, it still moves. Its concerned allies seem more confused than scared. Only a few of them try to keep up, while many more stay behind and try to figure out what just happened, and if their pack member is safe. After a few more minutes, you are alone again, this time on the crossroads at the foot of a watchtower. Sadal is tired, but patient, and more happy to survive than it is angry at your wanderlust. At least you can hope the pack will move to a different place during the night. While the hills are full of life, you don't hear anything coming from the watchtower. Its upper level lacks a wooden platform. Its upper level lacks even a wooden platform for which the guards could fire their crossbows or drop stones on the opponents below. So this place is not meant to be used in combat, but rather as a shelter from claws and fangs. Such structures can be found in untamed parts of the Dragonwoods, used occasionally by travelers or patrolling squads. Since the end of the war, the cities can't find enough people and dragon bones to keep them in good shape. You see no footsteps, no lights, no fresh air, no fresh trash or latrine. The birds are preening their feathers on top of the tower, while the branches on nearby trees are swaying in the fierce, cold wind. Maybe there's something interesting on the trail spot. I examine the campfire spot. You see a shattered bowl, the remains of a meal from many years ago. However, the firewood and the lonely stool are not too old. You don't doubt that the watchtower seems less threatening to wayfarers than the wilderness around it. Maybe there's something interesting on the trees. It must be a human-made copse. One of the smallest of spruces are out of order, born of wild seeds. The largest trees are as tall as the tower itself, which certainly doesn't help those who are meant to observe their surroundings. There are some stumps, most of which used to belong to young saplings. The trees were likely meant to be sold to carpenters and coopers, but they were left alone many years ago. In the copse you find a wild fennel and lettuce, thriving in shadows. There are pears and berries growing among the trees and shrubs. God. I approach the entrance. You take a look at Sadal. If necessary, it could bow its head and walk inside. This place should be a decent shelter for both of you. The planks are strong, heavy, well protected from the rain and wind. When you knock, there seems to be thick. While the door shakes at your push, it won't open. Defensive structures usually have a locking bar on the inner side, but you could also see a large keyhole. You walk around the tower, making sure there are no open windows or other entrances. It doesn't look like you can get in without destroying the door, and doing so would make a potential entryway for wild creatures. You kneel down and take a peek. There's nothing in the hole, but the room is dark, with tiny bits of light passing through the crevices of the windows. You see shapes of wooden furniture like tables, casks, and a ladder, but the only movement you notice belongs to the dust dancing in the sunbeams. Setting up a firm wall in place like this is a bit unusual. It goes on for no more than 40 feet until it connects with a natural rock face. Such a structure could be found near the city, acting as a checkpoint, at which to stop travelers to search through their belongings or request a fee. But in the middle of nowhere, deer and other animals used to running here with no hindrance must have been more annoyed. A risky investment. You touch the gate, made of high-quality wood, previously soaked in oil, now mostly wiped off. It was left open, and you don't see any wooden bar that would be used to lock it. You try to move the cold planks buried in dried-out mud, but with no luck. It would require some wearying digging. Oh boy. Seek shelter. It's too dangerous to stay here. You can't sleep here, but there's still time to get to a safer spot. great. That sucks. We're fighting bugs. There. I'll sleep in the attic. The sounds of rain wake you up briefly. Before you return to sleep, you think about your plans. Riding in the mud is difficult. Sadal will have a rough time. Might be a good day to take a break. Yeah, if I had any fucking money. Like most people, you wake in the middle of almost every night. Before your second sleep comes, you spend an hour or two taking care of your belongings. Some people spend this time with their friends, families, or lovers, but your routine is different. If you don't have to take care of essential tasks. I need to clean myself, dude. Take care of my horse a little bit. Listening to the grunts of the annoyed Sadal makes you uneasy, but at least the furs covering the floor are helping you relax. You don't even notice when it's already morning, or the smell coming from the lower floor is not inviting. At least it's not you who has to take care of it. Do I have no money. Fuck me. Alright. So, 2 hours. That's fine. We're going to call it here. I don't think there's much interest in this game after all. I like to play it, but reading it out loud really does take a number on my voice. And if it doesn't seem like anyone's playing or watching, I'm probably going to go ahead and stop streaming this game. I probably have maybe one more stream left in me for Palia. If I'm not picking up any followers, we're going to drop that too. We do have other games that I want to play as well that I can install, so we'll probably just go to something else entirely. Thanks for watching on VOD. I guess I'll see you all in the next one.